Try Life on Family, what's happening? This is Maurice. Hope you are well. It is November the 22nd. Tomorrow is Thanksgiving. So, whenever this comes out, I just want you to know that I'm wishing you a happy Thanksgiving. Probably come out next week or just after Thanksgiving, but happy Thanksgiving. Blessings to you and your family. And before I kicked off my Thanksgiving, I had the opportunity to speak with my man, Noah Tetzner. I like Noah. We've tracked each other down a couple of times. He runs a company called Profit with Podcasting, and I purposefully asked him to come on the show because I like introducing you guys to versions of lifestyle businesses that truly generate revenue, but give people a way of living in a very different manner than the simple status quo of graduating college, getting a job where you have to go to the office and all that type of stuff, right? In fact, I wrote a newsletter about lifestyle businesses. If you go to the website, trylifeon.com, and I'm on there now. If you go to the website, trylifeon.com, click on newsletters. It is newsletter 17. Let's talk lifestyle businesses. Noah asked me during the show, like, why did I bring him on? Because I'm not a tech executive, Maurice. I'm not an entrepreneur in the like Instagram sense, if you will. But what he is something special that anybody can lean into. And I love the fact that he leaned into it. One, he didn't go the standard route of, I'm going to do this in an office. He decided, after working at a grocery store, to start a podcast himself. And it naturally morphed into a podcasting platform business where he supports people who wants to get podcasts off the ground. That's the first thing. It's different. It's a different mechanism by which you can make money. That's the second thing, the making money part. It's a six-figure business. His first year, when he was supporting people, he would just put himself on Upwork. It was generating about $1,000 a month for him. I'm gonna stop there for a second. Just out of thin air, creates $1,000 a month. Excuse me, $1,000 a week. Sorry, which is $48,000 a month, a year. And people say, no, I have to have a job. It's very difficult to be out there. I'm telling you, if you can get creative, you can literally create money out of thin air the way Noah did. So in his first year, he's $50,000, and he has grown that into well over $250,000 and growing. And he's honest about that and transparent, which I love. And then the third thing is understanding what podcasts truly are. Yes, it is a platform. Yes, it is a TV show or a show, a radio show, if you will, but it's so much more than that, in that it's a networking mechanism. Noah talked about how he interviewed someone from Iceland and ended up visiting that person. I mentioned the fact that I interviewed someone by the name of Glenn Hicks, who lives in New Brunswick, Canada. He'll be on an episode soon. And I've always wanted to go to that region of Canada, and now I'm going to go visit him because he lives on the water and I'm a water guy. It truly does connect you in ways meaningfully to people because you have wonderful conversations. And then the other part of it is it's a business development tool. I've done business with people that I've met through podcast interviews, whether they've interviewed me or I've interviewed them. Noah has sent me several people to interview through podcasting, through Profit with Podcasting, his platform. And I've been interviewed on several of his podcasters' platforms. It is a business development tool. So that was the purpose of me bringing him on and me alerting you to the fact that podcasting in and of itself is a very different thing. And Noah Tetzner is an expert at it. He's been doing it for quite some time. I hope you enjoy this episode. I hope it gives you ideas on how you can build lifestyle you don't need a vacation from, or maybe even just stay at your job or stay whatever you're doing and supplement income, or just get your message out there or help one or two or three people. The reason I started Try Life On was not necessarily to monetize, but was to get all these concepts about lifestyle design out there and help 1, 2, 10, 100, 1 million of you. I love it for that reason. And I love it for the fact that it can help people so much. And that's why I brought Noah on. I hope you enjoy this conversation with my man, Noah Tetzner. Check him out at profitwithpodcasting.com. Please send me a message to Maurice at trylifeon.com for any reason, feedback, or what have you. And I would truly appreciate you doing a listen and consider a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to this stuff. I am trying to reach more people. I really appreciate you. I really like what I'm doing because of all the feedback I'm getting from you. So thank you. And again, if you are listening to this, it is November the 22nd. For those of you in the United States, happy Thanksgiving. I hope you had a blessed time with your family. And I hope you enjoy this interview. What's up, Chief?
How's it going? Good to see you. Where in the world are you today?
Brother, I'm in Washington D.C. today, and I'm happy as a clam because I got two kids. I got a 23-year-old who's like he's massive because he's training to be a bodybuilder and whatnot.
Yeah,
And then I got my 10-year-old. So to see them together, I don't see them together they're half brothers, but I don't see them together very often
yeah.
nowadays because Jalen, my oldest, is getting busier. But when I see them together, I'm like, I'm floating on cloud nine because I got my two boys with me and whatnot. So I'm in
That,
DC with my boys.
that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Are
Yeah.
you guys doing Thanksgiving together?
Yeah, we're doing Thanksgiving. So we got a new family tradition, and the family tradition is, and it comes from something. It comes from something, and that's part of trying life on and da da da. But my father, and we're a Haitian immigrant family. My father tried to, or we had a house on a lake in Maine when we lived in Boston, Massachusetts, and he kind of like overextended himself, but he was trying to create a tradition for family. You know what I mean? Like we would to go
Yeah.
up there on weekends and for the holidays and whatnot. And then like things happen. He had to give the house up. It was just too expensive. So when I retired out of the police department 2 years ago, while I was sitting in a patrol car 3 weeks before I retired, no, maybe 3 months. I don't know why I think three. I think three. But I bought this cottage
Yeah.
on the water, and it was purposefully to continue the tradition that my father tried to create. And
Wow.
I've put that cottage in the name of my two kids, and we're headed there right now to go spend the Thanksgiving holiday. And it's a beautiful thing for me. I'm like
That's
extending what
beautiful, brother. Yeah.
my dad tried to do. So it's a good thing. Where are you today, my man?
I'm at home in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Bay. I don't know if we should be talking since I'm technically a Patriots fan, and
Uh-oh.
Green Bay has ripped us apart during the Favre days for the during the Favre and the Aaron Rodgers day. You okay with Aaron Rodgers leaving?
Yeah, I think it's time.
It's time. Yeah,
It's
everybody
time.
goes
You
through the
know.
transitions, brother. Everybody goes through the transitions. So speaking of transitions, I'm glad you
Yeah.
came today. I really am
Thank
because
you.
yeah, man, and thanks for like I know you and I have talked a lot, so you have helped me get on other people's podcasts and helped me interview
Yeah.
amazing people for the people that care about my topics. And when I said the word transition, it's because there are a lot of folks out there like me who come from corporate background, entrepreneurial background, whatever background, and
Right.
we have a lot to say. And not everybody in the world is going to listen to it, but one of the best platforms to get your information and thought process out there is by podcasting. And it's not something I was very familiar with in my career at all until it got brought to my attention maybe a year and a half ago or what have you. But you've been helping people get their perspective and skill set out with, I know you're the founder of Profit with Podcasting, but with podcasting and coaching them on how to do it. And after growing your show to 50K downloads that I'm aware of in the first 5 months and stuff, and you decided to make podcasting your life, help me understand and help the listeners understand like how podcasting has become mainstream and how it helps people live life their way because it's a unique platform.
It totally is, Maurice. So we can argue about dates, but kind of collect, the general consensus is podcasting really became a viable platform for people to take advantage of around 2005. And
Mm,
I first got started in 2018 because I was a podcast listener. I
mhm,
was 16 at the time, and I listened to a bunch of podcasts with my dad. He's a small business owner, a real estate appraiser, and part of his job was driving all around Wisconsin, appraising people's houses.
mhm,
And at that time, I really didn't know what I wanted to do with life. I thought, oh, I'll probably get into real estate, maybe become a real estate agent, maybe become an appraiser like my dad. But for me personally, I knew I didn't want to go to college, and
yep.
I didn't know what that looked like. But I just thought, well, what if I started a podcast about anything, something that I was interested in? Maybe who knows where that could lead. I had this sixth sense, Maurice, that if I started this podcast, that would just open some sort of door. I didn't know what that was. So
Yeah.
I'm a huge history buff. And Vikings were really popular at the time. They still are. And I thought, okay, I'm going to start a show about Vikings. I didn't know what I'm doing. So I got like the most rudimentary podcast equipment, and I just started consuming other people's history podcasts. And I sent a cold email to someone named Caroline Larrington, and she was the professor of medieval literature at Oxford University. And I
Mm-hmm.
invited her on my show, and she was my first guest. And we had a wonderful conversation, and she started referring people to me. And before you knew it, 5 months later, 50,000 people were tuning in to my first show, The History of Vikings, every month. And so much has come from that, Maurice. I was telling somebody just yesterday, like, 5 years later, now I'm doing podcasting full time. I'm helping other people, you know, expand their network and monetize and create all sorts of great opportunities through podcasting. I am to the point where I can, in some way, trace just about every good thing I have in life back to podcasting
Back
in
to
some way.
podcasting. Yep, I love that. And I have a friend of mine. I'm glad you said that because a lot of the goodness in my life that used to come from me being in the corporate office, let's say, where I would
Yeah,
see people every day and we would go eat lunch or have a beer after work or whatever, like natural goodness will come from those things. Or
right.
if I was on patrol when I was a police officer, natural goodness would come from me and my boy drinking coffee at the 7-Eleven while we were waiting on calls. But when you leave all that, there's no natural connection point. It's not like you and I are still in grade school and high school and college where we see each other every day. There's got to be this other platform thing. My friend Molly, who runs Heartcast Media, what up, Molly? I
Mm,
know you're listening because I know you listen to me. I appreciate you. But I helped Molly with lifestyle design. She punched from DC. She moved down to Costa Rica, and she virtualized her entire podcast support business. But she told me something that was very interesting, which was, Maurice, podcasting, yes, it's a platform to get your views out there, but what it is that a lot of people don't understand, it's a networking mechanism. It's a business
absolutely.
business development mechanism because you're interacting with different people and you are validating that by saying all the good things that have happened in recently in your life. You can trace it back to podcasting. My assumption is that comes from the amazing people who you're connecting with and what they are connected to.
Absolutely. That is literally the value of podcasting is,
Yeah.
don't even, I mean, my show was really popular, but I do other podcasts to this day that might only get 50 people tuning in each week. And one of the things I like to say is if every podcast I ever hosted
Mm-hmm.
didn't get any listeners, I would still be doing those shows because of the relationships.
The
Um,
relationships, man. Yeah.
it's just, I mean, it's insane. I mean, clients, um, partners, lifelong friends. Just last year, I was in Iceland,
Mm-hmm.
and like I got there and I stayed with somebody who I met on my podcast. It's just beautiful. Like we had breakfast at his apartment. He let me stay with him. I was
Yep.
also walking down the street
Yep.
and I recognized somebody that I had on my podcast. Like
Yep.
it's just it's all about relationships. And podcasting is really a magic tool for building relationships with people, whether you're an entrepreneur and you want customers or clients, or whether I've seen people use it for hiring. I've seen people use it for all sorts of things. You're literally dedicating an hour of time or however long your episodes are to talking about somebody else's journey and their successes. And as you're doing that, you're building rapport. And then suddenly, in those magical 15 minutes after the interview's over, you could call that the green room chat.
The green room. Yeah.
It's like there's just
Where the
this
bacon is made. Where the bacon is made.
literally, it's just
Yeah.
like, okay, how can we work together? How can we stay in touch? How can we collaborate? When are you going to be in Green Bay or whatever it is? So
That's it.
that's it, man.
Yeah. And that's exactly what happened with you and I, right? I don't know if I reached out to you, you reached out to me initially, but we were trying to get me and I think some of your talent on podcast, or maybe I was trying to get on your podcast or something, and we've
Yeah.
stayed in touch. And here we are talking to each other. And the funny thing is, you said about staying at your boy's house or maybe a girl's house in
Yeah.
Iceland. I interviewed a gentleman by the name of Glenn Hicks, and
Glenn
Glenn
Hicks.
is he calls himself a digital independent, older guy. He runs a couple companies. He lives in Eastern Canada, not in the Prince Edward Islands, but New Brunswick, I think.
Okay.
I've been trying to get to Eastern Canada specifically to Prince Edward Islands, but anything Eastern Canada over Maine for 2 decades. And I've just never had the inkling to just, even though I travel all over the world, I've never had the inkling to just pounce up there.
Yeah.
And when you know this brother lives up there on the water, I'm invited up. I plan on going up probably in December or sometime in the January timeframe. It just kind of opens people's worlds to something different, connecting you to a different topic. How do how did you go from, yeah, man, I'm going to start my own podcast to I'm going to support people's podcasts? And let me frame that question,
Yeah.
because you know there are people like Maurice who are doing something for work who want to transition. They want
Mhm.
to do something different, or maybe they want to stay at work, but they're an IT executive, but they want to talk about ancient art and pottery in Egypt, and right.
I
How
love it.
how does that happen, and how do you find your talent, and how do you coach people to get a pod off the ground?
Yeah, that's such a great question, Maurice. So in 2018, I started my first show, and honestly, it was a passion project. I made no money off of it at first. Within
Mm-hmm.
5 months, I grew the show to 50K downloads a month, and just doors started naturally opening. So, at first, it was being invited by this museum in York, in the UK, called the Jorvik Viking Center,
Nice.
to do media coverage for one of their events. So they paid for my travel, they paid for my lodging, and I was like, man, this is cool. Like this
Mm-hmm.
is such a great, because of my podcast story. Another great opportunity was getting to write a book about Viking battle tactics with one of the big military history publishers. That came through podcasting. I interviewed a guest, and he said you should talk to my editor. I did, and that's what I did during COVID, is wrote that book. And
Right.
I
Right.
wasn't really making any money at it at first, but the relationships and what I was learning was priceless.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, how do I make this into a full-time career? How can I do this so that I can support myself and I don't have to go to college, and I don't necessarily have to become a real estate appraiser like my dad? How can I do this full time? So for me, that was actually getting started as a freelancer on upwork.com. That was my
Okay.
first step,
Okay. Yeah. On
you know.
Upwork. Yeah.
That was
Okay.
my first step.
Yeah.
So
Well, and real quick, explain what Upwork is, because not everybody knows what that is.
So if people know what like Fiverr is, Upwork is a competitor to Fiverr, and basically it is like the world's leading website for companies to hire independent contractors for everything from graphic design to
Mhm.
copywriting to even sometimes legal things. And it's the number one platform for freelancers like me at the time looking to find work. So
Nice.
I
Okay.
created I created an Upwork account, and watched a ton of YouTube videos on how the algorithm works and how people find you and whatnot. And I remember I had a guy contact me, and he was
Hmm.
like, hey, I started a podcast and I'm looking to get it on all the major platforms. How do I do that? And
Hmm.
would you help me do it? So I'm like, sure, no problem. Well, what works for you? And I said, how about $300? And the project took me like 2 days to complete. And I was like, man, there is something in this. And he left me a great review, and we went on to do more work together.
Yep. Yep.
And then and mind you, at this, prior to this, I was working at a grocery store because I'm like 17, 18 years old.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Yeah.
Yeah. So pretty young. So as I'm on Upwork, I had another client.
Mm.
It was a law firm based out of South Florida, and they wanted me to do some podcasting stuff with them. They wanted me to do full service, every aspect of podcasting. How much would you do for that? What does that look like? And I, sheepishly said, well, how about $600 a week? No problem. And that was as
That was the
much
first
as
inkling. Yep.
it was the first inkling, because it was as much as somebody full time made at that grocery
At the
store I
grocery
worked at.
store. Right. Right. Yep.
you
Yep.
know so I kept on Upwork. I was on that platform for a while. I achieved, it was called top rated plus status, so it's like you're in the top 5% of all freelancers on the platform, and they feature you and that kind of stuff. So I spent a lot of time on Upwork, and then but I knew it was limited. It was somebody else's platform. I had to build my own brand and my
That's
own
right.
business.
That's right.
So honestly, I came to this point where I was like, I'm making good money at this. Like I was just under, well, not just under six figures. In full transparency, when I was on Upwork, I was probably doing about $1,000 a week. And I was like, man, how do I
Yeah,
take
but
this?
that's a lot. I just want to. I don't want you to
Yeah,
gloss over that because, and we'll get back to your story, which is really important. But I want to pull out things for people to grab onto, for them to recognize
please.
you can build your own economy. You
Yes.
just said $1,000 a week. Now, $1,000 a week as a 1099 or a subcontractor, that's $1,000 in your pocket. You're probably not paying taxes right away. You got to pay it
Right.
after the fact and all that type of stuff. So let's just call a spade a spade. Some people are going to pay the taxes. Some people are not going to pay the taxes. We know that. But it's $4 grand to live, which is 48,000 bucks for the year. Let's just call it 50 grand salary. You created a 50 grand salary out of thin air,
Yeah.
out of thin air. Now, out of your passion and out of taking dedicated steps, I call it, you have a blocker, you create actions to get over your blockers, and you created a $50,000 salary. So when people are telling me they cannot leave their job to go try life on a different way, there is not money out there, I call bullshit on that. I am one of the people who learn by doing. I'm doing online coaching now, and it's a mid six figure business, but it's relative to podcasts I get on with you, and then attracting clients, and then creating a platform, trylifeone.com, and
Yeah.
genuinely helping people. People who are listening, you are working at a job that you don't like, and you are pondering jumping to something. My man Noah just expressed that he created a $50,000 job at the infancy of his podcasting career, just like that. Come on
And
now.
and
You can
and
create something different for yourself. I had to call that out, brother, because there are
please.
people who want to do things differently, and it's important.
And I think one of the biggest fears a lot of people have, Maurice, is how will I get clients? How will people know I exist and so forth? I didn't know the answer to that question, but what I did know is there was kind of a
Yeah.
marketplace that
Yeah.
existed
Yeah.
called Upwork where everybody had their wallets open already. If you have an account on Upwork, it means you're looking to hire somebody. You know what I mean? So there's all
Mhm.
kinds of creative ways you can find an existing demand for what it is you offer. A lot of times what I would do is I would look on websites of
Mhm.
companies that I wanted to work with and look to see what they were hiring for. And if what they were hiring for was in some way related to what I did, I'd try to reach out to them and build a relationship. And I wasn't looking for a full time job, but just I knew that they had a demand for what their
Love it.
services were.
Mhm.
Um, so I spent some time on Upwork, and
Yep. Yep.
this is now 2021. I transitioned off of the website just because it was a great first step, but I knew I wanted to build a brand. I knew in my mind that I did not have all of the skill sets that I needed to be able to do everything under the sun when it came to podcasting for people. I was really good in a few areas, but I wanted to learn more. So I got a
Right.
full-time job at a marketing agency.
Mhm.
I had a few freelance clients on the side. I knew that this was short term, and I had a, 40K a year job at a marketing agency. And I learned so much like that. The way I frame that in my mind is, you know what? This is getting paid to learn,
Yeah.
like,
Right. So you were intentional about getting that job to get the skill set.
yes, yes,
Brother. Yeah, I got you. Which um I in my journey, and you know this, I stayed at all my careers. I didn't leave. I
yeah,
appreciated the skills that I was building and learning, and I've applied them to my entrepreneurial endeavors. And even I'm not worried about talking about podcasts because I brief generals, I brief CEOs of companies. I was always doing stuff. Skill sets matter, but I love that you intentionally picked a particular job to get the skill set that you needed to be the entrepreneur you were headed to be.
yeah, man. It was such a great experience. I mean, I loved every minute of it. I loved adding value to the company.
Mm-hmm.
I loved what I was learning. I loved being recognized by clients. It was such a great thing. And I stayed with that particular company for about a year.
Yeah.
And I loved every minute of it. It was so good. And by that time, I understood because, and honestly, one of the things that I wanted to know is how do these agencies get clients? How do they get clients? All I know is how to, promote myself on a platform like Upwork, but how do you do outbound and how do you get leads and how does that process work? So I learned that by studying the sales and lead gen processes of the agency I worked with. And then, when I left,
Oh, I see. Yeah.
and it was an amicable split. I took those strategies and applied them to my own business, which is when I founded Profit with Podcasting, which was essentially in January of 2022. And I grew that business to six figures. In full transparency, and I'm not saying this to brag or anything like that, but I just want folks to know it's so possible. So I started in 2018 with doing this as a hobby. In 2022, the business cracked $250,000. Like
Nice.
it's all about relationships and it's all about learning. This was not like, this was not smooth sailing all the time. This was
Right.
me stepping away, taking time to study, taking time to learn. And then when I was ready to hit the ground running, it was just so much easier. And yeah, worked with all kinds of people. I've been fortunate enough to do some work with like Siemens Energy and Alibaba.com and do some consulting with them. And it all comes back to relationships, Maurice. That's what
Hmm.
I'm passionate about. Like, if you had 52 conversations on your podcast, that's one a week for a whole year. And
Hmm.
in every one of those conversations had some sort of potential, whether that person could become a client or they could become a partner, or you know what, you found them on LinkedIn and they're interesting. Like
Yep.
you wanna learn from, like, I'll tell you, Maurice, I discovered you and I told this story when you came on my show.
Yep.
Um, I discovered you because last August I was in Iceland and it was like late at night. I was at the hotel winding down from a day of sightseeing and I got in my little Toyota Yaris car that I rented and I was like, man, I'm hungry. So I drove to a grocery store. It's midnight in Iceland, pitch black. I drove to a grocery store. There was a Domino's right next to it. I got myself a Domino's pizza. I was eating it in the car at midnight and I listened to your interview on Jordan Paris's podcast. And I'm
Oh
like,
man, Jordan Paris. Yeah, yeah.
like how cool is this? And then I'm like, man, this Maurice guy is fascinating. And what he's saying, like literally is speaking to where I am in life. And I'm not, a tech executive or anything, Maurice, but just so much of what you said
Hmm.
resonated with me. And I
Hmm.
thought, man, he would be a great fit for some of my clients' podcasts. And now, here I am talking with you today. So
Yeah. Well,
it's beautiful, man.
that's the key right there. So I was pushed into podcasting. I was challenged by a buddy of mine to get into podcasting, to be interviewed on podcasts to push my story out
Yeah.
because I never really in my journey, financial, lifestyle design, whatever you want to call it, traveling to 100 countries, the federal agents, police stuff. Yeah, I never told anybody. I never told anybody what I was doing. Um, and my buddy Jerome Myers, what's up, man? I thank you for pushing me. But my buddy Jerome in late 2019 challenged me, and he said, "You are a servant citizen. You always seem to want to help people, but you're not helping anybody by not telling them your story. And you
Mm,
need you need to express your story." So the first podcast I ever went on to be interviewed was my buddy Jerome Myers' podcast, Dream Builders, I think it is, Dream Catchers. And I told a story about how I was an exec during the day, a police officer at night, a real estate investor on the weekend. I traveled to 100 countries and all this stuff, and the principles that I had learned behind it. And lo and behold, people started reaching out. So I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But
yeah,
here's the thing that you said that I wanted to call out. Because I got on the podcast, you found me. And if
exactly.
we want opportunity, and I don't, and I mean this with all strength of my heart. I don't mean opportunity in terms of money. I mean
Yes.
opportunity in terms of connecting with people. There's something that I have to say that resonates with people. There's something that I have to say that resonates with people. But if we don't put ourselves out there by podcast interviews or doing a podcast, the people who are intended to find you, there are literally people in the universe waiting for you, but just don't know that you're there. And what a great medium to execute it in.
Oh, absolutely, brother. And if I can just shout this out, Maurice,
Hit
I
it,
I
hit it.
list I listened to your interview on Christopher Nelson's podcast.
I was just listening. I love that interview. I was
Oh,
just listening to it this morning.
well, Maurice, and I can't remember when I listened to it. It was recently, just as soon
Yeah.
as it came out, I listened to it. And
Yeah.
at the end of the interview, you started getting emotional when
Yeah.
when you were reflecting on, because you got your start in your 20s as well.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
were just getting emotional because you were reflecting like, man, thank you, my younger self, for following these steps, because now I get to live this life. And it
Yeah.
made me think, man, I'm in my 20s and I'm getting started. I hope I'm like Maurice when I'm, in my 40s and can look back and say, Noah of his 20s, thank you
Yeah.
for putting those steps. It was, yeah, just
Bro,
it's all, yeah, man.
that just gave me that just gave me chills because we don't, man, I didn't see my 40s coming. You know what I mean? I didn't see this thing coming. So the steps you are taking now, 45-year-old Noah is waiting and he's watching.
Yeah,
And he's watching how you are building a business. You have built a business and a brand through podcasting, but he's watching even more how you are connecting with people in the world and plugging into planet and life as intended. You're not sitting, nothing wrong with sitting in a queue, but you know what I mean when I say this. You're not just staring at a wall every day. You're engaging people. You're helping people build something for themselves and to connect with other people. And beauty is when you do something you love, money tends to be a byproduct of it,
yes.
right? It just pops out. So I'm telling you, brother, 45-year-old Noah is literally sitting there right now in the heavens somewhere smiling. He's
Oh,
like,
brother.
man, because he's doing that. That six-figure thing is going to turn into seven figures because he doesn't see that in 2028, the person that he talked to in 2026 is going to connect him with this thing and everything's going to blow up.
And if I may just add that, Maurice, I've threw out some dollar amounts before just to let everybody know it's so possible. This is
Yeah.
never about the money. It's all about relationships. I'll tell you, I'll be vulnerable for a second. So last year was my most successful year of my life. I made the most money. I traveled to the most countries. I
Mm-hmm.
connected with the most people. But I that shiny object syndrome that so many of us deal with clouded my mind, and it became more about what I was doing. I allowed these opportunities to consume me, and I didn't appreciate the genuineness of the relationships and everything I was doing. And because of that, I made some negative choices. I let my health go. I let my health
Ah,
go. I
yeah,
gained over 60 pounds over the last year. And
yeah.
let me tell you who got me out of that. Somebody that I met through my podcast named Joshua Gillow, who was on this
I
show.
know Joshua Gillow. Yeah, yeah.
Joshua was a
Oh, yeah,
client
you
of mine.
connected me with Josh.
Isn't he
I
great?
forgot that. Yeah, he's a
Yeah.
fantastic guy. Yep.
So he was a client of mine, and and we became really good friends, and we still are. I consider him part of my tribe and one of my brothers. I talked to him a few times a week, and he was aware of some of the mistakes that I had made and what that meant in my life. And he said, Noah, there's this event in Wichita Falls, Texas, and we're gonna get you there. It was this men's transformation event, and I was at a low point in my life, and he said, brother, I want to get you there. He intervened in my life and he helped me get to Wichita.
Mm,
And at that event, I recommitted
hmm.
myself to in full transparency, Christ. That's my higher
Yeah,
power.
yeah,
And since that, I've dropped 20 pounds. I have more opportunities and doors opening up. But like, that is the depth of relationships that you get through podcasting. Who was a client became a lifelong friend and a brother who was able to see me struggling and say, I'm gonna help you, brother. I'm gonna
yeah.
lock shields with you and get you out of that. So
I
I,
love
I
it.
just it's all about relationships, man.
It is all about relationships. So if some so express to me how so I'm a wannabe podcaster
Mhm.
and I reach out to you. What are you telling people? Like, okay, someone's gonna listen to this right now and they're gonna be like, I want to do that. Like that Mo and Noah just motivated me. What are you gonna tell them when they email you and set up a call?
So what I'll tell you is this. So first of all, we need to define your goals. And I always start with a conversation around your business, understanding your current business, understanding your current situation. You know, are you a corporate exec wanting to transition out and do some consulting? Are you a brick and mortar entrepreneur wanting to transition online? Are you an online coach wanting to expand your practice? I spend a lot of time learning about their business, and more than their business, their goals. What does that look like? Most of the people that come to me
Mm-hmm.
want to learn how to monetize their shows. They want the podcast to be a revenue generator for their business.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll say, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a show. It's going to be super high quality, and we're going to create a show that highlights the ideal person that you want to speak with. You know what I mean? So
Okay.
so my show, the high ticket offer,
Mm-hmm.
has nothing to do with podcasting. It has everything to do with B2B businesses and agency owners, because those are the people that I want to build relationships. So, if you want to create a show where you interview seven-figure CEOs, you could call it, the seven-figure leadership show or something like that.
Yep.
Create a
Yep.
show that highlights your guests.
Yep.
Then what we're going to do is build relationships with those people. We're going to invite them on the show and highlight their expertise. And then there's a process that we follow to give you the most, I don't want to say bang for your buck, but help you build relationships with those people in such an intentional way.
Yep.
How do you have the most authentic, engaging conversation? The kind of conversation where after you're done talking, you feel as though you've known the person for 20 years.
That's it.
And after you get off the microphone, how do you maintain a relationship with that person? Is it
Uh-huh.
planning, hey, when are you going to be in the same city next? Is it mailing them a physical gift, thanking them for coming on the show, something thoughtful, picking out, man, what's something that they mentioned during our conversation that would mean a lot if I physically mailed them something to do with that. So that's basically what we do, and that's how
Yep.
I
Yep.
help folks monetize. But it's all about relationships, and at that point, podcasting becomes it's like magic, Maurice. As you know, it's a
Yeah.
platform for sales. It's everything.
But my assumption is that sometimes you are actually playing coach too, and like
Yes.
helping people get over their fears of speaking, or I don't know, generating questions kind of on the fly, feeling in their natural, like I feel totally in my natural state now. But I've been doing this for a minute, but also I had the types of careers where I wasn't worried about what, people's opinions and stuff like that. But does that happen a lot where you kind of have to coach people through the physiological side of it and all that type of stuff?
Oh, absolutely. And what I tell people is, listen, because I have the same fears, Maurice, that even still things that I thought I conquered long ago still come up. Like, man, you're like, even when I was coming on your show, Maurice, like I know I have some value that can hopefully help at least
Yeah, for
one
sure.
listener. But I do think, like, man, I'm not a tech CEO. I'm not, I don't have a multi-million dollar real estate portfolio. I'm a lot younger than these people. But the reason why my story or anybody's story is so special is because it's yours, and there's only one of those stories. So take off your mask and just be your genuine self. Ask questions during those conversations that you legitimately want to know the answer to. Don't even worry, ooh man, is that going to sound good, or how's that going to sound? Show up and have a genuine conversation with somebody, and by doing that, you're adding value to their life.
Yeah, so I'll tell you why I wanted you on the show. Because, man, and it has zero to actually, it does have something to do with age, because you've made a shift from the natural course of go to formal school, go to formal college, stay at this career forever. You decided to go your own path. That's important because I want people to see alternative directions for their life. That's the first thing. The second thing is podcasting as a platform is a wonderful medium, and people are just not aware of it. Now, I grew up I'm effectively an 80s baby. I grew up primarily running around in my neighborhood playing Rolivio, which is hide and seek in the neighborhood in the 80s.
Yeah.
I didn't see this stuff coming. I had no idea about it. In 2021, I was still locking people up on the street as a police officer. And here I am doing this, and it's leading me to different parts of the world, right? Like I just gave you the story of going up to New Brunswick in Canada just to go visit someone and sit by the water.
Yeah.
And then the last portion, so it was two things. One, you made a choice to have a different career. Two, I wanted you to introduce podcasting in a way that I can't. And three, it's revenue.
It is.
Listen, this whole thing that we do where we work, if you can find a job that's your purpose or your passion, great. Me being a police officer, me doing Try Life On, I don't get paid for this. It's my passion now to give people information. But we got to live. We need money. And people are so used to getting paychecks as the only mechanism by which we get paid. It's not
Yes.
true. You can create your own economy, and you have created your own economy. So I wanted people to see or to get a sense of that from you. So those are three reasons why I brought you on, brother. Just in the last minute, what would you say to someone? What would you say to someone who is trying to create a new version of themselves? They want Julie 2.0. They want to get out of the office, or they want to stay in the office and supplement what they're doing. What would you tell them in terms of trying life on their way?
You have to ask yourself a question. And sometimes it's better when somebody else that you love and trust asks you the question. And it's this: what do you want? That
Yeah.
sounds so simple, but it's really not. And I always thought it was money. I always thought for me, it was looking a certain way, being perceived a certain way. That
Yeah.
wasn't it. What
Yeah.
I truly wanted was meaningful, genuine relationships with people.
Mm-hmm. I love
That's
it.
what I wanted. And podcasting has given me the opportunity to do that. I mean, early next year, I'll be going back to Iceland because I met someone through my podcast who specializes in Glima, which is the national sport. It's Icelandic wrestling. And he's like one of the grandmasters of this sport. And he said, I met him on a podcast and I said, hey, next time I'm in Iceland, would you give me a private session? And he said, no question, man. You know, so it's stuff like that, for you have to ask yourself, what do you truly want, and then reverse engineer your life from there, as you talk about, Maurice.
I love it. I love it. And I think a lot of people can do it. I think this is a great example of what I call lifestyle businesses. I will highlight that because I've written a newsletter on lifestyle businesses as a viable option for people to shift into, meaning, nah, man, you don't have to make $10 million and retire. No, what about switching to something that supports the lifestyle you have? And that doesn't necessarily mean you got to go invest in real estate or do crazy stuff like I do. You could just execute a lifestyle business. It could be a B&B, a bed and breakfast, could be a small cafe, but could also
Yeah.
be a podcasting company the way that you're doing. It's just a wonderful example of the fact that I'm getting old because there's just so many new ways to exist, so many new ways to help people and to empower your message and get it out there, man. And I'm grateful to you, man, because you've connected me with certain people. You brought me on your podcast so I can deliver my message. And I wanted you to deliver your message to my folks, brother. And I'm very grateful for it.
Well, I'm grateful for you, Maurice. You have a wonderful platform. Your LinkedIn posts, your podcast episodes have impacted me personally more than I think you know, and I can't thank you enough, man.
Brother.
So
Thank you. How do people find you if they're looking out for you, bro?
yeah, so we just launched a new website, profitwithpodcasting.com. That's the best way. And you can shoot me an email. It's on the website, Noah at profitwithpodcasting.com. But let me tell you this, like, I want you to start a podcast no matter what. I don't care who you work with. If you
Yeah.
hire me or one of my competitors or whatever, I don't even like the word competitor, but shoot me an email if you're interested in starting a show with no expectation of us doing any work together, and I'll help you to do that. I'm a big fan of adding value to people, and I
Yeah.
want you to start a show because you'll be hooked once you do. So get out there, and I encourage people, at least consider it, look into it. And if I can send you guides or resources or what equipment do I buy, I'll do that, for free, because podcasting allowed me to live the life I do, and I know it can change your life in a good way too.
It can change people's life. And I just wanted to tell you, just for folks listening, I'm looking in my files right now, and my man Noah is my 61st recording of a show.
Wow.
61st. And I can't remember when I started this, but I feel like it was middle of last year, something like that. I just didn't expect it. I didn't expect it at all. And the funny thing is, I did my first show. I happened to be in Beirut, Lebanon, and I got into someone important in my life got me into a studio there, and I just kind of sat there and out of body experience. Like, okay, I'm sitting in this podcasting, no, just a studio in Beirut, Lebanon, recording
Yeah.
my first podcast. You don't know where it's going to take you, man. You really don't. And as I sit here, you gave great examples about Iceland and the people that you've met. I'm very aware of the companies that you've supported their podcasts. So when you go to profitwithpodcasting.com, Noah supports a lot of entities that are doing a lot of great things, man. So podcasting has been wonderful for me. I expect to keep going. I would hope that people out there keep going. You are a great example of a team. I talk about all the time. It's not the what, it's the who that
Yeah.
can push you forward faster. Folks, you don't have to do it alone. If you want to get into podcasting, reach out to my man Noah. And brother, I will support any person who needs a good guest. If you think I'm a good guest to help their message,
Love it.
this is what we do, brother. This is what we do. So thank you for coming on the show.
It's my pleasure, Mo. Thank you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. All right, man. I'll be talking to you soon. Hey guys, this is Maurice, host of the Try Life On podcast, and thank you for listening to another episode. I hope you are finding it useful in helping you design your own lifestyle that you don't need a vacation from. If that's the case, please consider dropping a review for me, whether in Apple, iTunes, or in Spotify. Drop a review, put some stars on it, give me some feedback on how I can make the podcast better, what information you are looking for. I am doing my best to get information to you on the Try Life On principles, the 5 freedoms, how to build lifestyle, travel hacking, all of it. And I want to do it for you. So please do a review for me. And until next time, my name is Maurice Philogene, and this is the Try Life On podcast. Peace.